I'm convinced that map is the key to everything I've been searching for my whole life.
Seriously?
Under the Silver Lake is about a lot of things. The film's long, rambling story covers many different themes and messages, to the point where it can be hard to bring them all together in a cohesive way. At first, I could only look at this in a negative light. The film is too long, it drops too many plot threads along the way to be satisfying. But Under the Silver Lake is a movie that sticks in your brain. Thanks to the wonderful direction and writing of David Robert Mitchell, I found myself thinking about this movie long past the runtime. And the more I thought about it, the more the choices this film made felt intentional. Or maybe I should say that I think the way that the story lays itself out, with all of its hanging threads and apparent digressions, is probably the point of the movie. Under the Silver Lake is about Hollywood, pop culture, alienation, sex, conspiracy theories, power structures, mental illness, misogyny, homelessness, obsession, and dogs. It manages to link all of this and more together through its 2.5-hour runtime. Under the Silver Lake is obsessed with the entertainment industry. It decides to examine the effect that the industry has on the people who work in it, as well as the effects of the culture it helps create. It does this through our main character, Sam, a strange, almost feeble man who gets wrapped up in one of the strangest conspiracies I've seen since Sorry to Bother You. Sam is voyeuristic and lonely. He has a tendency to latch on to specific ideas or people. He's sort of the perfect candidate to pitch a conspiracy theory to. He lacks much direction in life, chasing after women on a whim, and busying himself with things like looking for secret messages hidden in Wheel of Fortune. Imagine getting that worked up over a TV show. What a weirdo. Oh, and he's probably a dog murderer. Sam exemplifies a sort of millennial malaise that I think a lot of people in their 20s or 30s can relate to on some level.
You ever feel like you fucked up somewhere a long time ago? You're living the wrong life, like a bad version of the life you're supposed to have.
Of course, his character takes those feelings of lacking agency in your life and not seeing any real prospects to gain that agency, and pushes them to some unsettling conclusions. I wouldn't call him a sympathetic character by any stretch. He's a habitual liar and seems to have little actual respect for anyone but himself. The scene where he criticizes the homeless when he himself is on the verge of eviction because he's too busy playing detective really made me frustrated with him. Especially since he appears to have a loving and supportive mother who would probably help him out if he told her the truth. This all combined with the constant hints that he's the dog killer makes watching him feel pretty ominous. Because of this, Sam ends up being the perfect character to watch navigate the surreal version of LA. Sam's problems let the film explore the flaws in the entertainment industry and how those flaws can impact people who are already in a bad place. The timing of Under the Silver Lake's release is a weird mix of premonition and good fortune. The conspiracy in the film brings to light a sort of shadow organization that hides secret coded messages in music, movies, and television. The men behind this are also entombing themselves with young women so that they can ascend to rich guy heaven and be regarded as kings by generations in the distant future.
Okay.
So, we have a movie about an industry that is obsessed with public opinion and legacy, that builds on that legacy by carefully controlling the media people consume, and also is literally built on top of the bodies of countless young women coming out just after the Harvey Weinstein case brought about the Me Too movement, and just before Epstein was arrested for the second time, and committed suicide in his cell. There's no way this film was written knowing that these specific events would happen, but I'm not saying David Robert Mitchell is a psychic here. You don't have to be to know that the world's most powerful people can get up to some shady shit. The Westminster child sex abuse scandal was covered up back in the 80s and resurfaced back in 2014. Epstein's crimes were public information back in 2005. Even this guy knew about it. Conspiracies between the wealthy and powerful to commit heinous crimes to vulnerable people are pretty much accepted knowledge at this point, and Under the Silver Lake is wrestling with this fact. Most conspiracy films are all about the chase, getting all the facts right, trying to find some form of justice, but not this film. It's more worried about the mental strain of thinking or even knowing that a conspiracy exists. Based on what we see in the film, Sam is correct. His crazy theory is right. But he doesn't really gain anything from it. Sam's life doesn't improve after he kills the man who's been writing all of the world's pop songs. And he certainly isn't successful in saving the girl he's after. They just have an awkward phone call where she explains that she didn't even really want to be saved and that Sam's too late anyway. This isn't a conspiracy movie in the same vein as JFK or something, where the film provides an earnest suggestion as to what really happened. Instead, it's about conspiracy theories in general, how the line between real corruption and wild theory tends to blur, how people get wrapped up in mystery, how real events can often be more strange than what you can imagine. The path Sam takes to discover the conspiracy is worth looking at as well. The methods he uses to find the next step are a mix of comical and a little pathetic. But despite how crazy his actions are, they end up leading him to the truth. This gives us an important message about how to deal with these types of things in real life. The film is saying that really knowing all the precise details of real-life conspiracies is impossible. We will never know everyone who helped Epstein traffic children. We will never know how many nameless women have been exploited in the entertainment industry, and we will never get a full grasp of who is in control of what we consume every day. To attempt to wrap your head around this, to busy yourself with finding the whole truth rather than an actual solution, isn't going to go well for you. The whole truth is likely much more strange and stupid than you'd expect. And even if you do figure everything out, what then? What will you do with that information? Holding powerful people accountable for their actions isn't exactly an easy task. Maybe it's more important to work towards a world where that kind of power doesn't even exist, rather than driving yourself insane with the minor details.
You don't ever think that maybe rich people know something that you and I don't?
Like good restaurants, maybe.
Something that strangely ties into these themes of power and influence is all of the references in this film. I went through the first half of this movie thinking I was so clever, noticing all the Hitchcock references. We have inspiration from Rear Window, Vertigo, and Psycho, all over this movie. And then this happened.
Go. Bye, nice meeting you.
I'll get that ass.
This was the movie telling me, you ain't shit. Everyone's seen Hitchcock, dude. Try looking a little deeper than that. And it worked. It got me thinking a little more about why these references to other films were in this movie in the first place. At first I thought it was just something like, Hitchcock is dead and movies can't be as good as his anymore. But the way this film uses its references led me somewhere else. I think Under the Silver Lake is borrowing or calling back to old movies to bring to light that many of the problems we see in today's entertainment industry have always been there. Using these references to tell a story about a man who has lost his mind in a conspiracy about the same industry that produced those referenced movies in the first place. It all feels very cyclical, and it expands past just Hollywood and into the music industry. When Sam meets the songwriter who plays hit after nostalgic hit during their conversation, claiming to have written each one. When he ends up killing the songwriter, it hardly feels like a victory. The man who has been behind nearly every popular song ever written wasn't even at the top of the conspiracy, and he can probably just be replaced. The messages won't stop, and vulnerable people working in entertainment will keep getting hurt. The whole scene lets us work through the feelings of discovering that the person who created the art you love is horrible. This is happening in the real world now more than ever before. Lots of the movies I like feel pretty weird to watch after learning about Kevin Spacey, for example. Under the Silver Lake is telling us that maybe we should be careful about letting someone's art define us as people, without knowing more about who was behind that art. Separating art from the artist is difficult, and for some people, myself included, impossible. This scene is the film pushing us to make an assessment about the art we enjoy and the people who create it. And that's probably my favorite thing about this movie. It makes you think, long after the film is over. And not just because it's super confusing or even that odd, because the film makes it clear that not all of the scenes in this movie should be taken as reality. It sort of lets people pick and choose what really happened in the film. For example, my reading of it was super focused on what it had to say about conspiracy theories and the entertainment industry. But you could also see this movie as a story about a man who is dangerously mentally ill, but can pass unnoticed in society due to how atomized American culture has become. That is a perfectly valid interpretation. This film isn't concerned with what actually happened in its story. Instead, it sets out to make you think about the culture we live in today, how that culture can change us, and how we can change our culture. It doesn't make excuses for Sam's behavior, rather it wants to look at how his personal problems can interact with the problems of the society he lives in. It's rare to see a film with this kind of budget go for an open-ended story like this. So I'm really excited that I got to talk about it with you all today. If you have any interpretations of Under the Silver Lake, I would love to read them in the comments. Thanks for watching.